Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. For millions of businesses, Shopify helps you do your thing however you cha-ching. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout as Kim Kardashian Skims. Sign up now for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/transform, all lowercase.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Andrea Mein DeWitt. Andrea and I are going to be talking on the topic Name, Claim, and Reframe, the ultimate guide to living your best life. Welcome, Andrea.
You, Myrna, for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, awesome. So let me give you a brief introduction. Andrea Mein DeWitt is an author, sought-after speaker, and dynamic leadership coach who teaches high-performing leaders to see and step into their power, potential, and truth. She is the CEO of Andrea DeWitt Advisors, where she coaches heart-centered working professionals who are feeling the call to chase a dream, create something new in their lives, or transform something that's no longer working. Her 2022 book, Name, Claim, and Reframe Your Path to a Well-Lived Life, helps readers on a path to self-discovery, enabling them to access their personal power and potential in a way that aligns with their truth. True, Name, Claim, and Reframe. Her new follow-up workbook, Name, Claim, and Reframe Workbook, Your Companion Guide to a Well-Lived Life, offers an in-depth introspective extension for readers to harvest their own insights using NCR. Andrea holds her master's in education in leadership from UC Berkeley and is a professional certified coach through the Coactive Training Institute and the International Coaching Federation. She lives in San Francisco Bay with her husband and lovable Labrador, Maggie May. I love when people give these little personal information about their lives so that we can get a complete, synopsis of who they are. I love it. All right. So one of my guests said this the other day and I've bored it. I love it. So let's start off by setting the table. Can you share how we can start naming the source of our emotional triggers, fears, and limiting beliefs? Or why should we start naming them?
Myrna, I think it's a good idea to go through what name, claim, and reframe is. And so if I may, I'll just give some ideas.
You see what I said? Set the table. Let's set the table.
So name, claim, and reframe is about naming your emotional triggers. Why am I reacting to that challenge instead of responding to it? Claiming resonant actions that match up with your core beliefs. When you know what your core values, your core beliefs are, it's easier to understand why you feel emotionally triggered so you can see clearly what you really need and want to feel more balanced. And then reframing your mindset so you can separate your ego and shift your perspective and maybe see the situation from a new perspective so you can harvest learning and move forward. And so that's name, claim, and reframe in a nutshell.
All right. So why, thank you for that. So let's individually go through them then. So how does it help us to name it? What does it do when we name something?
When you name that you are feeling emotionally triggered and you're reacting, and I'm talking about leadership. When we react to a challenge, when we're a leader or when we're talking to our significant other or to our child, we are reactive. So we're showing up in a wounded way. Maybe we are defensive or we're overpowering. And so it's about noticing. I mean, conscious leaders know where they all are at any given given moment. And so it's really about conscious leadership, about going, ooh, I'm feeling reactive. Let me stop for a minute and see why I'm feeling emotionally triggered. Okay, this is bothering me. And so I'm going to take a beat to think, okay, instead of reacting, I'd like to respond. Do you want to try something? Let's try it. Think about time for you, Myrna, when you feel like, what kinds of situations cause you to feel emotionally triggered, say in the workplace?
Well, it's very interesting because I have a personal story that I've mentioned a couple of times on the show where I recognized that I was becoming angry and I was being triggered. And I felt it in my body because anger is like a pipe, at least for me. You felt it coming up, right? And I knew that something was triggering me. So I knew it was anger. Is that what you're talking about? Am I naming?
Exactly. So
anger? Okay. All right.
So when you're feeling angry,
right?
I'm going to push back a little bit and say that when we're feeling angry, usually we're either, we don't feel seen or we feel hurt or something's happening. I mean, anger is a cover-up emotion for something underneath. So
right.
My question would be, if you think about that incident, what was under the anger? What was it? Were you not being respected? Were you not being seen? What was going on in that moment?
Well, yeah, one of the other things that anger is you think that, I'll add another definition. Those two are correct. But the other definition is if you think that someone has no right to do something that they're doing. And that was my anger issue, where I'm thinking that they don't have no right. So going a little deeper, I adopted some children that did not respect me as their mom. They wanted their biological parent. And whenever they would disrespect me or not love me or whatever, I would push that emotion down because I felt betrayed. I felt whatever. And I pushed it down, and then several different things would trigger it. So I mentioned this the other day when I was talking to someone about therapy, because I actually did go to a therapist because I knew that the anger was not me and I knew it was coming from somewhere. And, we went through it and we figured out the source. And then she told me.
What is the source? I mean, when you think about it, if you think about, you've made a home, you've opened your home to children,
right?
You've opened love, generosity, all of that.
Right.
And if I may, I'm hearing there's disrespect.
Right.
You're feeling disrespected. So right there,
ungrateful. Ungrateful was the big
ungrateful.
Thing.
Yeah. So if you can, if I may, you could say, okay, I'm being triggered and I'm feeling angry. So instead of feeling angry, you say, "Ooh, I'm feeling triggered." What could you respond with in the situation with, say, a child that maybe doesn't have the maturity to be, self-aware or conscious of this? What might be a response that might help you to respond to that? What might?
Forgiveness, I guess. That what I did, this experience was coming up after when it was going on, I stuffed it down. You're right. They're children, they have been, abused, mental issues, attachment disorder, all the things that and you understand what it's like to be moved from a different home, and you understand all those different things, right? So I stuffed it down. So when the anger was coming up, it was years later because I had stuffed it down. So let's go to your analogy, which is my personal one, of a name, claim, and reframe. So let's go through the name. I'm naming it as anger. How do you teach someone to name something that's triggering them? Whether it's me being unloved, I guess, by rejection actually was a big thing. It was rejection, right? But people can be rejected from all areas in life. It can be rejected from, a partner that left them. They can be rejected from their parents, your child that doesn't love you, and you're assuming your children should love you. whatever. So yeah, it actually was, I felt rejected. So how would someone give us some emotions that people can name? Because we're in the name yet. We don't want to go to the claim and refrain. So let's look at that.
So in my book, I talk about leadership skills. And so when we're angry, we have a wounded reaction. Right. So if we were to bring it back up into a response, you might get curious. You might say, okay, instead of getting angry, I'm going to get curious. I can see you're upset here. Help me understand what's going on for you. So you're saying, I see you, child, but let's find out, let's get on the other side of this. And so you're really being receptive. You're going back up and you're offering, there's forgiveness, there's curiosity, there's compassion. I see you. I see you're upset because you see it in yourself, but you're also modeling for that child how to deal with conflict. So help me understand what's going on for you, because what you just said hurt my feelings. There's vulnerability. Right. So it's really about receiving, which is a more feminine, and both men and women have masculine and feminine traits, or however you identify. So when you receive someone with love, compassion, forgiveness, which is what I heard you say, right? You get, Chris, let's work together here. You're creating consensus. So right there, you've made the choice to choose again. Instead of anger, you're choosing curiosity, you're choosing forgiveness, you're choosing compassion, receptivity, partnership. Let's work together. Okay. To get on the other side of this.
I want to circle back to that because my experience was with kids, which you can forgive them, you understand where they're coming from, but you specifically used the word leadership. So I'm assuming we're talking about in a corporate environment. So let's bring it to adults. You felt, I'm still trying to understand what we're naming. Are we naming the emotion?
We're naming the emotion because leadership is an inside job, Myrna. It starts with you. And I would say that leadership starts in the home. Right. We, as parents, can model smart, strategic, resourceful, and graceful leadership for our children, just like we can model it for our teams and our colleagues. So why not be the leader that models that kind of leadership? And you can do that for your children in that situation. You can do it for a colleague. If a colleague shows up and they're disrespecting, you can say, I can see that you're upset about this. Right. Let's work on this together. Okay. I see you. Being seen, somebody is, we get angry because we don't feel seen. We don't feel respected, which is a lot of times what we get frustrated. And so that's a wounded reaction.
I know it's a wounded reaction, right?
It is. So we can catch it.
Right.
Ourselves thinking, okay, I'm angry. Now, instead of anger, I'm going to lean into curiosity and I'm going to ask a question. Or I'm going to take it back and say, I can tell that this is hard for you. It's hard for me too. Let's work together.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to throw it right back at you then. So why did you start doing this work? What is something that you had to name? And
that's a great question. I think that many people in their careers have a point when they are feeling dissonance. And I had that point in my life after like a 32-year career as an academic, everything from teaching school to the, elementary school to all the way to the college level. And I wasn't happy anymore. And I was feeling dissonant. And so I thought, I'm feeling really not great about this. So I'm going to think about naming how I'm feeling and getting curious about why I'm not feeling great about this. And so right there, I knew something wasn't right. And I think when we know things aren't right, we feel it in our gut. Before we hit record, we talked about, feeling it in your body. You often feel it right in your body. And so it's about acknowledging your own pain.
Many of you listeners are used to seeing GoFundMe when a loved one needs help with medical bills or a community is rebuilding after a wildfire or a hurricane. GoFundMe is a great place for those kinds of situations, but you can also use GoFundMe for all kinds of fundraising needs. For example, Pastor Glenn started a GoFundMe campaign after a man came into his church and pointed a gun at him. The church needed funds for security improvements in the building. Pastor Glenn's funds has raised over $2,700 to date. GoFundMe is the most trusted place to raise funds, chosen by over 150 million people. It only takes a few taps to get your fundraiser up and running. So next time you need help, whether it's for medical bills, if you're a college student needing help with tuition, a teacher needing help for classroom supplies, or a business owner needing help staying afloat through tough times, or anything else, just tap the green button to get started on GoFundMe. Everything you need to help your fundraisers succeed is here, with tips, resources, and AI tools to help you tell your story. It's free to start, free to manage, and designed to help you reach your goals. Start your fundraiser today by going to my special URL, gofundme.com/transform. That website again is gofundme.com/transform.
When you think of businesses that are selling through the roof, like Kim Kardashian's Skims or Justin Bieber's Drew House, you think about a great product or a cool brand with brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, including Skims and Drew House, that business is Shopify. Shopify helps you do your thing however you cha-ching. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. So, if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business today and get the same checkout as Kim Kardashian's Skims. Sign up for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/transform, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/transform to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/transform.
And so when we get curious and acknowledge, instead of stuffing our pain, we acknowledge it's there. We actually are receiving ourselves with grace and curiosity and love, just like we would that angry child that maybe disrespected us.
Right. Okay.
And so
that's how you started.
That's how I started. And I mean, in that sense, I jumped tracks. I went back to school. I earned my coaching certification. But through that, I really got curious about, what do good leaders do? And I mean, good leaders, good parenting is good leadership. Being a friend is, you can model good leadership. Being in the workplace, you can model good leadership. And so I got really curious about, instead of being triggered as a leader, I want to be more responsive and strategic and resourceful as a leader. And how do I do that? And so that's where name, claim, and reframe came. And the claim step, we talked a little bit about this in the name step, but the claim step is really about choosing a core belief to latch onto, because we all have to do things we don't want to do. So Myrna, if you were thinking about having that dissonant moment with your child, if you were to claim a core belief, that you really wanted to honor in that moment, what would you claim? If you, a core value, what would you claim?
Well, my core value is gratitude. If someone does something for you, you should be grateful. I grew up with my parents telling me that you need to be grateful. Regardless of how you feel about them, you need to be grateful. And if someone has done something life-changing for you, then you should be grateful. So my thing was ungrateful. So ungrateful is a big core belief for me, right? So that's where
but I also heard something else for you when you were talking about this. There was compassion too. And for the child, this child has been moved around. I'm having compassion to this child that this child has moved around. So right. Now there's this child or children have been moved around. So there's compassion that maybe they don't have.
Right.
They haven't experienced.
Right.
Gratitude because they've had to be in survival mode.
Right.
And
exactly.
so I mean, did I hear compassion from you, or was that?
Oh no, I understood. But it's still a human response to expect gratitude. We are wounded if our children or our parents don't love us, because it is a core belief that they should. Right? So you asked me what core beliefs. But I understood. I understood what was happening. In fact, when you become a foster parent, they tell you all that. I adopted kids from the foster parent bucket, I should say, and you understood. But we all expect different things. If we treat someone nice, we expect them to love us. It's a transactional thing. I do something for you, you do something for me, kind of thing. So, yes. So I understood where it was coming from. But that doesn't mean I wasn't hurt.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So in this sense, when you are feeling, rejection, I mean, you're feeling maybe taken advantage of, you're not feeling received. I mean, you're feeling that there isn't gratitude.
Right.
If you were going to choose again, Myrna, to maybe model for that child, maybe something they hadn't seen before, what could you do in that moment based on your core beliefs that would model for that child how to handle this conflict that you're having? What might you do?
Well, I do it a lot now in various relationships because the Bible teaches you to give without expecting anything back in return. So that's basically what I do. I give because it's the right thing to do. I love because it's the right thing to do. And you don't expect love back in return. It's just something that you give. You become love. You become love. Same thing I do in the show. I mean, I love what I do. I love giving out that love energy, and it's something that you become, right? So that is basically how, if I were to reframe it, that's how I would reframe it. How did you reframe yours?
So I'm hearing that when you said when you are love, when you're being, or you're sort of embodying love, the word that came to me was, I thought, oh, she's in integrity. Because no matter what, when I am love, when I am giving out love, when I'm giving out generosity and opening my home and loving up something that is maybe a little prickly, you're still in integrity because you're modeling something that's important to you.
Right.
And it's like that, okay, if I'm in integrity, then I'm really, I've claimed something that's important to me. And so I'm going to be in that, even no matter how hard it is. I'm still honoring my own core belief of love and gratitude. And compassion is my word, but I heard it and I saw it in the loving expression on your face for really opening your home to these children that really needed your love.
Right.
Because we're kind of in the name claim. We can reframe too, if you want to. We can reframe.
Well, not yet. Let's keep, got 45 minutes. Let's dissect this stuff. So, so that was my reframe. So how did you reframe yours when you found the dissonance and you found that? I mean, you didn't say much about it, but I'm assuming that you felt unfulfilled. You didn't use that word. I mean, but in the coaching world, we're all unfulfilled until we reach into our purpose. So is that where you're?
I think my situation was really thinking, okay, I'm wearing this identity I've had for 30 plus years. It doesn't fit anymore. I don't like it. And it's really scary to say, this isn't working for me. I've got, I'm doing this, but none of it feels good. And I think when we name the fact that we're unhappy, then we claim an action that matches up with our core beliefs. And for me, that was, I want to get curious about the things I do love, which, you and I are both coaches.
Yes.
I love mentoring. I love coaching. So I'm going to get curious about who's doing what I'm doing. And so I started talking to people. And my action was to go back to school. I think in everything, the reframe, and when we experience dissonance, those are always little gifts to us, because in dissonance, when bad things happen or plot twists happen, there's always a lesson. And the reframe is, gosh, can I harvest, if I separate my ego, if that thing happened to me, and I shift my perspective and say, I'm going to look for the lesson, I can always find a lesson. If you think about things that happened to you that were hard, I think that hard things teach us the most about A, how resilient we are, B, maybe that thing happened to you because you really needed to switch tracks. In my case, I needed to get out of academia and I needed to get into something else. And I'm to this day really grateful that I was brave, because jumping tracks, in your early 50s to another career is really scary, and you, my goodness. And a lot of my clients come to me just at that point, and they could be in their 30s, they could be in their 40s, they've got kids, they've got a mortgage. And it's like, okay, so let's really think about what you love, what lights you up. And really, if we look at when I think about name, claim, and reframe, you can use it at with anything, not just big situations like opening your home to foster children. You can use it if you have an altercation with a coworker, or somebody cuts you off in traffic. You can name, gosh, that made me angry. And I'm going to choose again to just let this person in because they're probably having a good day. And my reframe is, I am not taking on that person's energy, because I don't want to. I am going to just say, you know what? It's okay. I'm just going to move on. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to model kindness. Gosh, if we all could model more kindness and forgiveness, the world would be a more harmonious place. And this work, name, claim, and reframe, has allowed me and my clients and those that have read my books an opportunity to choose again, a more strategic, resourceful, and I would say graceful way to see the things that happen in our lives that are tricky, that are hard. We all encounter adversity and conflict, and people are angry. And if we can be the person that elevates the energy of the room, we can model really resourceful leadership.
Yeah. So, I agree totally, because, one of my favorite books is Byron Katie's book on the work, which she says, is a truth, and reframe it. So I've worked on, and I've read her book, and, when I was going through a difficult patch in my relationships, I would, reframe it, just reframe your thinking. And it does work. In fact, one of my core beliefs is, I'm not sure if it's a belief, but it's my core way of being. And I got this from, working with Dr. Dwayne Dwyer. He has something that says, change the way you look at a thing, and the thing you look up will change. And that's what you call reframing. And that's basically what I did with my situation with my kids. And that's what I do with my situation whenever I have any conflict or anything that I'm upset of in my marriage. So I understand that. But for the listening audience, so let's dive deeper and unpack this. So we've talked about my situation. So give me an example of how I would reframe that. We talked about, I named that it was anger, and I claimed it, why I was angry. So what would be, if you were my coach, what would be my reframe?
So I would say in the situation when if you had, it sounds like you had a conflict with one of your children.
It wasn't really a conflict. It was their motive apparatus. They're kids, it's not conflict. They're minors. But yeah, I mean, yes. But anyway, right. So so I should unpack this for people that are listening because that's what we're doing. If I'm going to introduce it, I should actually unpack it. So what happened, I adopted kids when they were 9 and 11. And when the 9-year-olds, they're twins, when the 9-year-olds became 14, that's when the trouble started. They found their biological mother on Facebook, and they didn't want anything to do with me. They started running away and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically what happened. But I understood that. So I understood that I would want to know my biological mother. I understood that when the mother came to me and says, I want to be my kid's life, I said, I understand. Your kids got taken away from you. I'm not cool. I understood that. But what the problem was is that the kids didn't want to live with me anymore, and they had to because I adopted them. So they couldn't just run off to their biological moms. It caused a lot of problems, a lot of hurt in my life. So I had to, and I stuffed it down because I said, I understood. I stuffed it down, and then I started being triggered later on in life. So that is a full example. So as a coach myself, and by the way, I'm also a professional certified coach. It's really cute. That if I were to reframe that in what we're talking about, would I reframe it that I'm still on the understand part? So help me out with that. What is a reframe?
So I go back to you were saying, I was hearing claim that your action really to match up with your core beliefs was to say, okay, I understand that you want to know your mother. So the claim is, let me help you with that. Let me help you with that. And maybe creating some sort of boundaries around how that's going to work for you since you are the legal guardian of these children.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the reframe is when you're able to separate your ego and really shift your perspective to see the situation from a different perspective. Because at that point, Myrna, I was hearing, gosh, I was standing with you thinking, gosh, that would be really hard. If you have opened your home to children, they're ungrateful, they're wanting their biological mother, and you're thinking, and I don't blame you for being angry and resentful and feeling, you're going to need a reframe because you're going to need to separate your ego. This isn't personal. How can I look at this from a different perspective? So let's go there. So if we were to reframe it and shift your perspective to look at it from a different perspective, what in this dissonant experience, what can you harvest here from this moment, opportunity to see the situation, maybe from the kid's point of view, from the biological point of view, that would help you to really move forward with new perspectives? And what you probably are.
I understand where they were coming from, but what I'm still struggling with is how do I tell my brain, because that's to me what a reframe is.
Right.
If a reframe is change the way you look at a thing and the thing you look at would change. So I understood that it's a natural thing to want to know your mom. I understood it's a natural thing for a mom to wanna be in their kid's life. So me, if I were to take away my ego, how do I reframe that? How do I change the way I look at it?
So when we take away our ego, we don't take it personally.
Okay.
So you step away from it. We step away from it and see the situation with new eyes. Mm-hmm. So if you were, for instance, a coach looking at it, the situation, and you were a coach.
Right.
So, was there anything positive that came out of the situation? Was there anything that you could harvest? Was there anything that you could see that came out of this situation when these kids? Anything?
No.
There wasn't. at all. Nothing.
Nothing would just out of it that was good. No. Nothing came out that was good because, like I said, the kids started running away. They got involved with the law. At 18 years old, they went to their mom. Their mom was not capable of looking after them until they were 18. So they just really ruined their lives. So nothing came out good for them. They left me with a lot of hurt, but I felt good that I did something good. It's all about doing good, helping your community, loving. People do that all the time in relationships. You know, you love someone, they don't love you back. So I understood that. So I'm still trying to get to what was the reframe, though.
If I may,
yes,
I heard the reframe.
You did? Okay.
I did hear the reframe. I mean, it was, you had to dig deep for it, but
okay.
But I heard you say the reframe is that I made an effort to do something for my community. I put in my best effort. I tried to embody love with this family. I did my best and it didn't work. I mean, we have relationships that don't work.
Right. Got you. That's
and let me ask you this, Myrna. What did you learn about yourself when you were doing all those things? What did you learn about your own resilience?
Yeah. Well, I learned that I can love other people's kids as my own. I learned love. I learned what I am, love, and it's transcended my marriage and things like that, that I can love other people, you know, that I can, yes. I mean,
against all odds.
Right, exactly.
Against all odds. When kids are running away and you house them in your home and they're running off to their biological.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Wow. I mean,
right.
When I'm hearing this and I'm looking at you, I'm thinking, wow, this woman is resilient. This woman.
I know. Everybody feels sorry for me.
but it's so much, but it's like, in spite of feeling rejected, feeling angry, feeling complete, taken advantage. I mean, all of that, you still leaned into love through all of that.
Yes.
I mean, it's still a wound. Yes.
Okay. So I got the reframe. That's true. I did all those things, but I had to do that because I live a very conscious life. And when I'm living this conscious life, I know that, if you're going to, adopt kids and you are going to try to love them, I mean, statistics shows that it rarely ever works. They were not unique. It's basically,
but in this sense, I would argue that in your situation was your situation. So you brought all your gifts to the world, right? The ability to love, the ability to try to model gratitude, to continue doing it against all odds. I mean, there's all of that. I mean, even with all of that, I mean, it still wasn't successful, but there still is the fact that in the end, you modeled the best that you could for these kids. Yes. And you don't know what they took. You hope that they saw some of that.
Right.
And that's, you sharing your love and your light with the world. And so that's the reframe. Being able to love it. I mean, it's a very optimistic, because sometimes, we can't control somebody else's behavior, but we can control how we see.
Right. So I love that. All right. So yes, I was just wanting to dig deep and unpack it for myself and for anyone that's listening. So I got that. Yes, I got that. I got the reframe. Yes, you did the best that you can. It's, you give it your best shot. It didn't work out. That's a good reframe. That's a good reframe.
I mean, I think we all have relationships in our lives, whether it be with a parent, a romantic partner, a child, whatever it is, that we struggle with. And in the end, it's about having no regrets. I did the best I could in that situation. Right. I was in integrity with myself. I followed, my own core beliefs, and I did my very best. And you know what? That's all you can do.
Yes.
And then we need to I think, again, control is about trying to control things that we can't control. But if we can actually say, you know what, I need to release that because I did my very best. And what I'm hearing from that, and I'm looking, I can see the light coming out of you, is that here's a woman that has this gift and all this love, and it didn't stop the love that was coming out of you. You still gave that to those children.
I did.
And you did your very best. And that's enough.
I know. Thank you. Yes, I did. And yeah, it was painful going through it. But, and you know what? You just said something, a lot of, you know, the social workers and everything says, you know what? Yeah, these kids rejected what you're trying to do for them. But when they're in their 30s, they're going to be grateful and all that because they can't see it now. And you said the same thing, you know, you don't know what they took from it. This is why we need to always do our best because, you know, what somebody is showing you or the energy that is showing you, it could just be a buffer. It could just be an armor, right? But certain things are going through in all parenting. You know, these were not my biological kids, but biological parents have the same thing. You know,
believe me,
you go through.
They do.
Yeah, ungrateful kids that you brought them up. You did everything you can for them, and marriages too, relationships. Listen, that's why there's divorce because, you know, people always feel that someone is ungrateful or do whatever. So yeah, so your work with naming it, claiming it, reframing it, it's very good. So that's amazing. So, all right. So we spent a lot of time on that. Now you also have something that you called NCR. You didn't say what that is. So,
well, NCR is the acronym for name, claim, reframe.
And I think it was something else.
No, I mean, I think oftentimes I'll say with a client when they come, I'll say, well, did you NCR it? Let's go through with NCR it.
Okay. Right.
I mean, you know, with something as silly as somebody cut you off in traffic, you know, and you're maybe having a bad day, you know, the name, man, that ticked me off. You know, I'm triggered. This really made me angry. I didn't feel respected. That person just cut me off for no reason, and I'm in a rush. But I named the fact that really irritated me. But I'm gonna step back and say, okay, I'm gonna be generous. We'll let that person in, and I'm just gonna let it go. And then I'm gonna claim the fact that I am not gonna own up to that person's. I'm gonna create an energetic boundary. I am not gonna own that person's energy because that's not gonna help me at all. And taking a deep breath and then reframing it as, does it really matter? I'm going to be maybe 3 minutes late. Does it really matter? It doesn't. And I'm better. If it's better than getting in an accident. I could have gotten in an accident. I'm just going to let that person go. And I'm going to be grounded and centered when I arrive wherever I'm going to go. And
that's good.
Because I right there have elevated the energy of my lane of traffic. I mean, it's really, it's like, and I don't care what anybody else thinks, but I feel grounded in my integrity. I mean, it's really about, and yes. I think, and everybody can relate to this one. I mean, I think about when I have to go to my mother-in-law's for a holiday, you know, I mean, I feel like I don't feel seen or heard or at all. And I think, okay, I don't feel good, but I'm going to claim, you know, a core belief before I go. Okay, generosity, patience, kindness. Those are that I'm in integrity, and I go, and I still it's hard when I'm there, but I'm going to honor those core beliefs.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking I'm being kind to an elderly person because maybe they don't have the ability. And then I get to the reframe and saying, gosh, you know, it felt good it made her day for us to come. I'm so glad we went. Made her day. I'm being kind. And that I get to be the bigger person. I mean, right. Would you rather be the bigger person, the one that elevates the energy of the room? I mean, kindness, you know, be kind, be kind, be kind. Right. Gosh, and your blood pressure goes down. It's really, and I say this, Myrna, because I didn't always live my life this way. I'm a recovering warrior. I mean, I always gonna slay the dragon, but now in this moment with when I name, claim, and reframe, it's about working with the dragon. You know? Right. Maybe the dragon and I could work together.
when you're in the personal development space, you're fixing yourself as you fix your clients. It's all knowing yourself. Another tagline that I have: you got to know yourself to grow yourself, right? And that's a coaching tagline, or coaching motto, I should say. But yeah, you got to know yourself. You start off with clarity. You got to understand, which is same thing. All right, so that's good. So I'm glad we unpacked it for our listeners, and I'm glad I had a story to help us unpack it. So that was great. Now, you also talk about the voice of the inner critic. How does the inner critic lend itself to the name, claim, and reframe scenario?
Well, I think that everybody has an inner critic that argues for our safety. It's trying to keep us safe from failure, embarrassment, stepping out of our comfort zone. And it's really one of the first tools I work with clients. I'm sure you do too, Myrna. And it's really about noticing that inner critic. I just wrote an article about Ophelia the oppressor, who's my perfectionistic inner critic, who argues that I be perfect. When we're perfect, there's no way to be perfect. And when we try to be perfect, it keeps us from, allowing ourselves to try things and make mistakes, because when we make mistakes is how we learn. It keeps us from thinking out of the box and being expansive. And I think the inner critic, when we notice that it's there, will say, "Oh, what are you afraid of? I see you there on my shoulder. What are you afraid of? What are you trying to keep me safe from? Oh, well, actually, don't worry about that. I've got us covered. But thanks so much for trying to keep us safe. But I got us covered. So thank you." And then go on and give it a try. I always give our inner critics funny names. We all have different critics, some that are saying mean things, some that are people pleasers, some that try to be perfect. Whatever it is. And I have a whole section in my workbook that helps people to notice the voice of their inner critic. And if we can get ahead of that, it's the first step in really taking your power back strategically, resourcefully, and gracefully.
Yeah, you're right. We all have that. What is the number one thing that people come into coaching for? I'm not good enough, right? Isn't that your number one?
Do you have a name for your inner critic? Did you have a name for your inner critic?
I actually don't have an inner critic. I'm one of the
few. Oh, you don't? You don't? Oh, are you the first person I've ever met inner critic?
And yeah, I was, I don't know. I never criticize myself. I don't have an inner critic, so I am, isn't that, yeah. So
that is amazing.
I'm trying to think, maybe I'm not being truthful, but as I never have an inner critic. Now, I might criticize others because I live at a very high level of work. Like, I'm self-motivated, and there's certain things that I do, and I learn, and I do all the things that I'm supposed to do. So when I'm around someone that doesn't do anything, I might criticize them, but I don't have an inner critic, because everything that I think that I should do, I do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It sounds like you were a high achieving woman that asks a lot of yourself. But I would also argue, Myrna, that because I have that inner critic too. She's a driver, and sometimes she says things to me like, "You're not doing enough," or you need to be in there working right now. And I'll say, "Well, it's 7. I don't want to be working. You need to be in there." And so I would argue, and you may not agree, that that's critic too. It's like the slave driver, boom, 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 you gotta get in there.
I don't have that either, because what I do is I know that I have to have a balanced life. So to give you an example, I get up in the morning, I meditate, I read my Bible, I go for my walk, I come and I work for certain hours of the day, and then I stop and I relax and I'm entertained, and then I go to bed at a certain time. So, I mean, the odd time that's, for instance, I'll give you an example. I was, it was, it, I mean, I was at the airport about a year ago. Whenever I'm at the airport, I always go to the new books. And I was at the airport and I saw this guy that wrote this book, and it was really a great book. It was something about the 12 universal laws and all that. And I reached out to him on Instagram and asked him to come on the show. And a year later, I mean, I reached out to him last April. A year later, he reaches out to me and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry for my late response. I would love to be on your show." And he's like, "Great, great, great." And then he says, "Can you do Saturdays?" I draw my foot. This is somebody I want to talk to, but I'm not going to work Saturdays. Saturdays is not my time to work. And I told him no. And he says, "All right, we can do late Friday." But my point is, I have, and I've always done that. I mean, before I became a coach, I was a limousine operator, and self-employed, and people will call you. You'll be going out for dinner at 8:00, and someone will call you at 7:00, and it's a big job. And most people would say, "I'm not going to go to dinner. I'm going to take that job." I would say, "No, this is important." So I've always had that thing, you know what I mean?
Really, really incredible awareness around your energetic boundaries, Myrna.
Yes.
I mean, so unusual.
For labeling it. I love that. That's what it pulls out.
That's exactly what it is. And I mean, we work with our clients to help them with that. And it's just noticing. No.
Right.
And to me, an energetic boundary is just a core value violation. When that guy said, I want to do the podcast on Saturday, you're like, yeah, no. That's like, and I think, wow. I mean, that conscious awareness, and again, that's a name. That's naming it. But you noticed it right before you went into you didn't react. You responded, "No, thank you." Dr. Big Clear, "No, thank you. That's not going to work for me."
Wow. Exactly. So, yeah. So my point is, everything that I do is important. I walk and I exercise because I want to have a health span. I do my job here because I want to contribute to the world and create some wealth. And then when I have my downtime, it's so that I can do certain things for myself. It's all, I love that. Conscious awareness. Yes. So again, I don't have an inner critic because there's no time. I mean, the other day I was feeling bored at 4:00 in the afternoon, and I was talking to my daughter, and it was, a Saturday or something because I work every day. I mean, I don't interview, but I still work. And she says, "You should take a break." And I said, "No, I work until 6:00, and I'm going to stay here and work until 6:00. So I don't have this inner critic where, there's one time I remember when I was a salesperson working on the road for Office Depot. You are in charge of your own time, right? You can go to see a client or you can do anything. And I remember my boss saying to me at the time that she can never be in charge of her time because she would spend all day in Target. I never have that problem. I'm not going to sit and watch Netflix when I'm supposed to be working. I'm not going to go shopping when I'm supposed to be working. You know what I mean? So I have those boundaries. So thank you. So I don't have an inner critic, but yeah.
Well, I'm hearing that you are driven, and I'm hearing you very structured, and that's how that really helps you to be in integrity with what's important to you.
Yes.
I mean, working until 6, that's important, and you're honoring that within yourself.
Right. So I like that word, integrity in every single thing. I like that. Yeah. And if you were to go to my core belief, this is really not about me, but for some reason I seem to want to share. But if you were to go to one of my main core beliefs, my main core belief is do what you say you're going to do. And I think that was pounded in me when I was a salesperson. Don't promise what you can't deliver, kind of thing. So that's part of my integrative, core beliefs. And I hold myself to it too. Nobody needs to hold me to it. I hold myself to it. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about your book. You have a couple of books. you've got your last book is your companion guide, name, claim, and reframe workbook, your companion guide to a well-lived life. What's the difference between your first book and the second book?
It's a great question. My first book, right out of the gate, made the Today Show's list for the #1 motivational read for 2023. So we knew we had something going with the name, claim, and reframe system. And so my publisher said, hey, you know what? People are really interested in this. Let's do a workbook. And so the workbook is really giving readers the opportunity to use name, claim, and reframe in their own lives. There are prompts and inquiries that allow people to say, oh, I've had that situation in the name step or the claim step. It helps people to look at what their triggers, their emotional triggers are, core values are, and then helps them to reframe really tricky situations like healing from conflict, finding, the silver lining and even the most challenging plot twist. And so it's really a chance to put the power into the reader. And it's been really fun, Myrna, to see how people have been able to integrate name, claim, and reframe into their lives. I also do workshops and salons that help people to really, talk to me and play with this in a way that works in their lives. I mean, you can read a book, but until you really try it and apply it to your own life, it doesn't really make sense.
It's true. Right. I was reading something the other day. I mean, actually, I wasn't reading. I was interviewing one of the guests, and he talked about when he reads a book, he doesn't just read it. He studies it, and he can stay with it for months until what is on the page he understands and applies. So it's the same thing, with your workbook. Yeah, somebody can read name, claim, and reframe, but unless they sit down and write out their scenarios, like I did mine, I've come away from understanding, a little bit more about what I was going through. Like when I went to the therapist, all she told me was catch and release. Understand when you're being triggered, catch it, and read it out. Well, we never kind of labeled it and all that kind of stuff. So, so I came away from this conversation a little bit more informed. So, once you can put your specific information and work on it, then it's going to much more profound for you.
Well, and I think in our conversation, Myrna, we were stuck. We were trying to find the reframe because it was hard.
Yeah, I couldn't even figure it out.
It was hard, and I pushed you, and we found it. We found it in really bringing it back to you and your light, and your intention of trying to do good for the world and for your community and for 3 children that deserved a happy home. And you still put it out there. You still did it. And, the part with reframe sometimes is we don't know what the impact is. We don't know. I love my mother has always said, more is caught than taught. And sometimes we don't know what's caught until very much later in our lives. We'll say something and then we'll see it years later. You may not ever know, but you are in integrity because you did your very best. You shared your gifts with the world and opened your home. So there's the reframe. We found it.
I did. So I love it. So like I said, I gained something from this conversation too. So thank you very much, Andrea. Now, where can the listening audience connect with you? I know they can pick up your books on Amazon. What's your website? What's your social media handle so they can connect with you?
My website is AndreaDeWittAdvisors.com. And I'm on Instagram under Andrea DeWitt Coaching, and I'm Andrea Mein DeWitt on LinkedIn. And Amazon has all my information, or you can find my books wherever books are sold. And I so appreciate you having me on today. It was a fun conversation.
Yes, I enjoyed it too. We came off, when we do this, we want to help others. And I'm grateful that you asked me the question immediately. What was something that I've been triggered? So it's opened up a whole conversation that we didn't expect to. It wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. It just opened up something else. And it helped, whoever is listening to understand better our conversation. So thank you very much. This was like a live coaching session, right? Yeah.
The coach.
Right. Yes, exactly. As a life coaching section. And the crazy thing about it is coaches do need coaches too, right? I don't have one, but I remember when I was actively coaching, they always say that you also need a coach too, because there's certain things that you have a blind side about and you're not clear about and you need help, right? So this was my little coaching session here. So thank you, Andrea. We had a great conversation. I know that we helped a lot of people to understand what name, claim, and reframe really is. It's not a label. We allowed them to see it in action or see it in the work. So thank you for allowing me to contribute to that. Thank you for being on the show and trying to help my listeners understand this important concept. I will have a transcript of my conversation with Andrea on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I would also have links to her book and also to her website and her social media handles. So you guys can follow her and get some more information on that. So thank you very much, Andrea. As we wrap up, any last words?
I would say that this work helps people to really choose again to live more harmonious lives. And we all could choose again to really be the people that create more harmony and grace in the world.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, because once you reframe something that hurt you, then you are going to be harmonious. You're going to have harmonious energy, which is one of my big things, of harmonious energy. And I like what you said. You didn't want to take on, like if someone cuts you off, you say, I'm not going to bring that energy in because energy is big. I'm big on energy. So yeah, you live more harmonious lives when you don't have things bothering you. You're not being triggered every second. You're not, living in anger, right? So yes, it is more harmonious. So that's beautiful. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so you can transform your life. Today, we were talking definitely about how you can transform your mind with your thoughts, naming, claiming, and reframing with Andrea Mein DeWitt. And definitely go pick up a copy of her book, follow her on social media, because yes, we need to do the work. Nothing comes without us doing the work. So if you want to do the work to live a more harmonious life, to help with your relationships with your spouses, your children, work, we're talking about leadership in the workplace or leadership of your personal self, then this is one of the things that you can start with. Andrea, thank you for tuning in. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. Maybe give us your something that you had to name and reclaim and reframe. And if you're watching on iTunes, hit that subscribe button as well so that you can be the first to get our new episodes every week. Thanks again. Until next time, namaste.